We like very much to drive the industry rather than being part of the industry. This means you need to continuously innovate. We always had the ambition to grow, the ambition of, hey, this is where we want to go. Candy Crush today is not just one game, but is many games. For us as King, we have the opportunity because we have now more than 260 million players playing our games every month. If we come up with a great game, we can have the game played by millions and millions of players.
It's been a case of sweet success for Candy Crush, the wildly popular video game that's been captivating tens of millions of fans.
It's the game that's taking over smartphones and tablets everywhere.
They have Candy Crush on here?
No, keep walking, you're an addict!
A bright, eye-popping puzzle of sugary sweet rewards.
Tasty.
Daily time spent per player across Candy Crush, 38 minutes.
My kids love it.
You're addicted to Candy Crush.
It is so addictive.
I play Candy Crush all the time.
I tend to play it in my off time on set in between takes.
It's coming to television as a game show.
Candy Crush is one of the highest grossing cross-platform apps of all time.
It's been downloaded on iOS, on Facebook, and on Android over 500 million times.
I got so much candy, man. I got a sweet tooth.
Divine Sugar Crush.
I grew up in Rome, in Italy, and my childhood was actually beautiful because I was in the sun, and Rome is a beautiful city. My parents were very important for me. So from my father, I got the need to build my own thing.
His father was a doctor, a medical doctor, dentist.
I spent some time in his practice. I knew from the very beginning that it's something which I wouldn't want to do because I would know for the rest of my life what I would have done. And that for me was a horror.
For me it was the same. I wanted that he has to do what he likes.
My mother is Hungarian. She escaped from Hungary in 1956 with literally nothing, only a toothbrush. And they managed to rebuild their existence from nothing. And so what I learned from her were fundamentally two things. The first one is you never give up.
This I learned from my parents. I just continued.
And the second one is actually you can live well also without much.
He was not the best student, but he always did what he had to do.
I went to university in Rome at the Lewis University, and I studied economics.
Riccardo was one of the first students who asked me for being his supervisor for the thesis, and when he came to me, you know, at that time I was so young, and I had a strange study in my mind because there was a German scholar called Schmalenbach who developed a new accounting theory in Germany.
So I went to Germany to research this topic, and that's where I got an offer from a consulting company called LEK.
You know, I think that consulting is an excellent fit, particularly for entrepreneurial activities. It is a very good preparation.
He's the kind of person who's made for that industry, meaning super smart, left-brain analytic.
Internet stocks took off like a rocket in the last.
We were both very much attracted by what was going on in the emerging dot-com space.
And at some point in 1999, I met a very small team that was starting a company called Spray, which was an online portal, something similar to Yahoo.
Spray was a company that was founded in the mid-90s, in sort of the early dot-com days. I was one of the founders of that company.
By the end of that year, we grew from about 20 to 800 people. So it was an incredibly fast growth, and it was a real tech bubble.
Spray was part of the dot-com boom, but also part of the dot-com crash.
People who made fortunes in dot-com stocks now finding those fortunes wiped out.
There's no question about it. This was a selling panic.
Many professional investors believe the market may be approaching a climactic sell-off.
Spray was a big brand name during the first internet boom, and I suspect was the place where Riccardo kind of caught the digital bug.
At the end of that time, I got an offer from a company called Benchmark Capital. It's a large US VC, to come over to London and start a program called Entrepreneur in Residence. So I came in with 50 ideas, and one of these ideas was to go into online dating and change the business model from free into a subscription model. And one of the opportunities was to invest in an existing company, which was UDate. We made an offer to a guy called Mel Morris, who was the founder of UDate, but he refused the offer because the company was very profitable and made me instead an offer to join. I think I joined in August and he sold the company in December. And so I made about 350,000 pounds, about $500,000. And this money was the money with which we started basically King.
When we started King, I think we all came out of the dot-com crash. We were all sort of scrapping around a bit, starting a new company. We knew it would be hard to raise money. That was a tough period for all of us, I think.
I gave away my flat. I gave away most of my possessions. And I moved into the guest bedroom of one of my best friends. And basically all my possessions had to fit in a very small one-bedroom room. And there is a way of saying in Italy that the guest is like the fish. After 3 days, it starts smelling. So I stayed there for 2.5 years.
This was a period of time that those of us who lived through it think of it as the nuclear winter of digital technology and entrepreneurial ventures associated with anything to do with the internet.
We had capital to run maybe 6 or 8 months or so after launching, and we were looking for investors to back us.
But most people basically turned us down. And then we had a conversation with my former boss, with Mel, the founder of UDate, who basically told us that he wants to invest. And this was the day before Christmas.
We knew that if we didn't get the money before Christmas Eve, we essentially would go bust.
I will never forget, I was physically on the floor and we were really destroyed. And suddenly we heard that the fax was coming through. And in the middle of the fax machine broke down.
In the end, finally, the fax came through and they were so happy.
So from there we bought a new fax machine, the contract was signed, and so we could continue.
When we founded King, it was originally called Midas Player.
We bought the URL midasplayer.com, but we knew that the name was not a very good name. So we were looking for a long time for another URL. And finally, in 2005, we came across an English teacher in the US who was called Peter King. And we paid him, I think, something like $200,000 or $300,000 at the time, which was an incredible amount of money considering the money we had, and that's how we got King.com.
This company was what we call skill-based gaming. So you put in $1, I put in $1, we play each other.
The individual players would play against each other for a prize, less an amount which King would take as their share.
We had maybe 250,000 people that played every single day.
The primary source of distribution was from the so-called web portals, Yahoo, AOL, MSN, which was a great strategy at the time because the portals ruled the world in the online universe anyway. And that was true until the rise of the major social platforms, starting with Facebook.
In 2009, that's the year where Facebook also started growing massively.
The big change which happened quickly was the rise of gaming on Facebook in particular.
Facebook is in the news. Very soon, Facebook will have 500 million members.
You know, the advent of Facebook and people gaming on Facebook was just hugely disruptive. It kind of took the attention of the old players, but at the same time, there's just an amazing amount of rush of new players that came into Facebook.
We saw this hit the numbers at King, quite quickly, and to start with we were wondering, well, were we encountering some sort of technical problem? But then we quickly realized, no, it was competition.
We were trying to fight the downturn, but then we decided we had to reinvent ourselves.
So what we did is we divided the company in two parts. 50% of the people were focused on maintaining the company, and the other 50% of the company was focused on experimentation, on cracking Facebook.
When you look back, that was really the most dangerous moment for the company, and I think it's Riccardo's personality that ultimately got the business through.
This was a very, very painful time, but ultimately in April of 2011, we launched a game called Bubble Saga.
The retention of that was super, super high. And within the space of maybe 3 months, we had 1 million daily active users on this game.
Following that success, which for us was a big success, we launched Bubble Witch Saga.
These are the games that essentially prepared them for their second major pivot away from the social platforms and onto the mobile platform. When Candy Crush hit, they knew they had a hit on their hands that would transform the company, would transform the industry, it would put mobile casual gaming on the map. It did all of those things.
So Candy Crush was originally developed for the web, and then we launched Candy Crush in April of 2012 on Facebook, and a few months later, in November, on mobile. By the end of the month, the game went skyrocketed. I never experienced anything like that in my whole life. Basically, the users went up like a rocket.
The numbers of the company just exploded based on the success of Candy Crush on mobile.
There was a massive question from the markets. Will the game still be there in a few years from now? Is it a one-hit wonder? So the creator of Candy Crush is one of my co-founders, Sebastian Knutsson.
I think Riccardo challenged me to come up with sort of, can you make the best match 3 game ever? And I felt sort of, let's base it on candy, something people naturally are attracted to, they look pretty, and it really made the game stand out in the market.
Candy Crush is a game which is very easy to get into, but actually really difficult to master.
You have a board full of colorful candies.
And the candies are very well designed.
What you have to do is to match the candies so that you have lines of 3 identical candies.
And if you connect more than that, then magic things happen.
You take the Swedish fish with a color bomb.
And that creates some very special effects that can clear the whole board.
Sometimes players get stuck and they feel like they want a bit of help, so they might buy some boosters or some extra moves.
To achieve a level, you have to achieve a minimum score.
So if you fail a level, you lose a life.
You have 5 lives to complete this journey, and we have structured the game in a way that is easy to learn and fun to play for everyone.
Delicious.
By 2011, we were just at a point when smartphones, iPhones and Android phones, were becoming broadly distributed through 30, 40, 50% of the population. King was really arguably the first to crack the code on what we now call mobile casual gaming.
When we launched Candy Crush on mobile, we did something that no one else did before, which was to launch a real multi-platform game.
You could, start playing a game on the Facebook canvas, and then you could pick up the same game on your mobile or on your tablet.
With Candy Crush, that was something that was so intuitive and so suited to the mobile touch screens that we knew just intuitively that this was going to be a far, far bigger hit.
We grew into millions of players really quickly.
The numbers of the company just exploded based on the success of Candy Crush on mobile.
So that ability to just jump and get it exactly right on mobile was something that, King did incredibly well. And it was, I think Riccardo's leadership.
From a revenue standpoint, it went from $165 million in 2012 to $1.85 billion in 2013. So it grew 11x in 12 months.
Part of the design tenet of Candy Crush and all our games is that people could just play them all the way through without having to pay anything. Now, that said, we're a business, we make money, we're unapologetic about it.
It turns out that some very small percentage of the population decides, even though there is no tangible reason for them to do this other than enhancement of the enjoyment of the game, they pay.
So you could buy lives or you could buy special boosters, and they just help you play your game in a different way or in a special way.
Most of our players don't pay, but a few players basically pay. But we have a lot of players.
That is the magic of the free-to-play business model, and it's what fueled the ability of King to create just enormous value once the first hit, Candy Crush, took off.
We designed Candy Crush in a way that was perfectly suited for the mobile lifestyle, not just mobile, the mobile lifestyle. And what was really important there is to build the game in a way that you can play the game and have fun with it in just a few minutes. So you don't have to play many, many hours in a row, but you can play just for a few minutes.
We have all kinds of players, but I think our players are slightly more skewed towards women.
Everybody thinks about gamers as guys who are in front of a screen And I really loved that he thought about girls in front of a mobile phone.
Games traditionally had skewed young, they'd skewed male, they'd skewed nerd. These mobile casual games broke that model completely.
And this is why actually it's really has been also well received, in particular by moms, because they are super busy, and when they have a moment to relax, they only have a moment, usually don't have many hours to relax, unfortunately. But when they have that moment, they can really use also Candy Crush to relax for that moment of time.
King has always been focused on a bit of a different audience than the typical gaming company. So that's been in King's DNA all the time, and Candy Crush is no different.
After the launch of Candy Crush, we had to grow the company very fast, so we doubled the size of the team. We also decided to do an IPO.
King Digital goes public right here on the floor.
26th of March 2014, we then went public on the NYSE stock exchange. So that was a big moment.
I remember at the time, I think this was one of the largest European IPOs.
And we IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's exactly like in the movies. So you enter in this room, which is full with traders and is very narrow, and you sit on the balcony and you ring the bell. I bought the first share in the company, so this was the positive moment. The less positive moment was that the stock price went down.
King Digital, as we said earlier, priced at $22.50. The shares over at post-date now down about 9%.
We closed the day 17% down.
There was a massive question from the markets in terms of, will the game still be there in a few years from now? Is it a one-hit wonder that is going to disappear after a few years?
Today is the start of a marathon, and I think that the opportunity is great.
In the end, the company was struggling to get the benefit of the doubt that these games would have the longevity that they actually ultimately have had.
Technology shares of King Digital soaring this morning, up about 14% or so, after news that Activision Blizzard will buy the Candy Crush maker.
We ended up selling the company to Activision Blizzard at the beginning of 2016 for $5.9 billion.
So Activision Blizzard is the biggest Western interactive entertainment company. It has amazing properties. It has Call of Duty, it has World of Warcraft and StarCraft and Overwatch. It's the first actually interactive company from the days of Atari.
So now King is part of the wider company of Activision Blizzard, and we're the key part in terms of mobile games. We want to create great mobile game experiences which you can share and play with others. And so social play is inherently key.
And to have a Candy franchise, many years after launch, go back into growth is an incredible accomplishment. And I really think it was unleashed by that big transaction of M&A.
So Candy Crush had more than 4 billion downloads. It has been a top 10 game in the App Store for now over 7 years.
We wouldn't have known in 2012, in 7 years later, whether Candy Crush would still be the force that it is today.
The audience is truly global. It's in 196 countries. We have about 260 million users.
We even found that players were playing the game in Antarctica, so we know that we have players across all 7 continents in the world.
The number of levels played in Candy Crush, it's equal on a yearly basis. It's equal to everybody on Earth beating 26 levels each.
It was impossible to expect it. No, we knew that it would go well, but we had no idea it could go so well. We need to bring on board the best people in the industry. It's much more difficult to be admitted within King than it is to be admitted in Harvard.
I think everybody's a Candy Crush player. It's just such a joyful game.
I started seeing all these businessmen dressed in a suit sitting on the airline, started playing our game.
It was really a great feeling to, when you walk around, you see people playing Candy Crush, and it felt really great to be part of that.
I was on the park, I was in Hong Kong, and everyone in the park was playing Candy Crush. And it was completely crazy. And it's on the other side of the world.
I think those are moments that really makes him proud, so I think in the end he wants to have a positive impact on the world.
If you think about it, it's a 3-minute chunk of gameplay, which is more or less the same in its core. So their ability to modify that and keep it fun and keep it entertaining, keep it engaging, I think is phenomenal.
There was truly something special about Candy Crush. You know, it was a cultural phenomenon.
I think at the heart of King is a very strong creative team.
What you don't see is that we actually work on many, many games, and only very few games at the end really see the light. The games which have really the potential to be appealing to hundreds of millions of players.
Candy Crush is definitely the biggest one, but we've had multiple franchises that have been truly successful.
The gaming business is a blockbuster-driven phenomenon. And so what King has done essentially has to do what marketers refer to as brand extensions of Candy Crush. That has proven to be a very successful strategy for them.
In 2015 was when we launched Soda, and since then we've launched Candy Crush Jelly and Candy Crush Friends.
We have the Bubble Witch franchise, the Pet Rescue franchise. Farm Heroes is a franchise that's actually also made over $1 billion in its lifetime. You know, major feat in this space.
I do think that a lot of King's success, especially winning in mobile casual with older female users, is the fact that they created just an outstanding customer experience. These games are delightful to play.
Okay, so this was the size of the office. This was the size of the office 16 years ago. We were 6 people. Since then, we went through disruptions, we went through Facebook, we went through mobile, and every time we went through this, we became stronger and stronger. I was very proud when we checked some statistics, and we saw actually it's much more difficult to be admitted within King than it is to be admitted in Harvard. We need to bring on board the best people in the industry. And we should not be scared of bringing on board people who are better than you are. I just moved out of my role as CEO. I handed over my job to Riccardo Zacconi, an amazing guy.
I think he kind of trusts a lot of people around him. He hires folks, myself included, and he's brave in kind of giving people the space to do their own work and make their own mistakes.
So Riccardo has really galvanized the other founders around a common mission to back founders that are looking to have a positive impact on the world.
So we set up with our co-founders an angel fund called Sweet Capital from Candy Crush, so Sweet. And what we do there is only our money, it's not third-party money.
We want to back founders like ourselves, coming up with great ideas where we feel we can help, we can provide knowledge and capital.
Riccardo doesn't go in and tell you how you should build your next social network for teens. But all the experiences he has from King and previous businesses helps young founders think through how to think about building a business.
We have not too much support for the new entrepreneurs. In Italy, the venture capital market is very, very low.
More than 80% of the wealth created in the economy over the last 20 years has been created through tech. I think tech can really play an important role in the wealth of the economy overall.
Italy has a lot of talented people, and I think it's quite important to leverage that potential, and he can be instrumental in doing that.
And so I'm trying to help my country with my experience to basically develop a tech platform.
What's really impressive with Riccardo is that he's grown. He's always kept his optimism, his energy, his drive to do the next thing.
The most important thing that he told me is never give up.
When times get tough, he just doubles down, and he's very creative, he's very demanding, he's very entrepreneurial.
It wasn't just he knew where we were going, it was the ability to inspire and get everyone else on board.
His vision was, how can we just make the world a little bit of a better place by providing this type of entertainment?
I always had in myself the need to become an entrepreneur. And so I think that if you have a passion, if you have a desire, the only risk in life is not to try to pursue it.
I think Riccardo is just this incredible mix of businessman, entrepreneur, and a nice guy.
He's a top high performer, but with a very humble core.
My key philosophy is that you always meet twice. So you should always basically treat people in a way that is like you would like to be treated yourself. That's, I think, very important.
He is very, very focused on treating the team as he would personally want to be treated, and people love to work for him.
I've never met someone more genuine in terms of their, I guess, caring about other people's well-being.
And so I always try to leave doors open and to choose paths which would not cut off opportunities for the future.